There is still a very strong reliance only on online dating, which means that a lot of people isn't creating connections, it's creating transactional relationships. Our most important relationship is with ourselves. So getting to really love our own lives so then we can offer and share it with another, as opposed to like, gotta find a date.
Why do you think they've stuck with that?
Well, it's fascinating because a lot of people will say, if you see people who are together for 50 years unhappily, that's success. Like, I just see that as mind-boggling to me.
What do you think everyone wants in a relationship?
Most people want...
Sally Jane Douglas, renowned relationship mentor with over 17 years experience, empowering women to find love and deepen their connection. Her signature method fast tracks the dating journey, helping clients attract aligned partners while remaining true to themselves and avoiding the exhaustion of modern dating culture.
Whatever it is that we uniquely desire, whatever it is that you desire is right for you. Is what you get to own. People want 7 partners. People want to live apart. There's so many different dynamics of relationship. Whatever it is that creates happiness and connection and unity in your relationship is perfect for you.
The burning question I've got for you is how you help mentor women who have a fulfilling and full-on business career, as well as have a fulfilling and amazing relationship.
Big question. Yeah, well, it is one of the biggest challenges because...
Sally, welcome to Flow Zone.
Thank you. I'm so happy to be here.
I'm really happy you're here as well. We've had a lot of audience sort of requests coming our way. I've got a pretty large female audience. A lot of our audience are business people as well. And the burning question I've got for you is how you help mentor women who have a fulfilling and full-on business career, as well as have a fulfilling and amazing relationship.
Yeah, big question. We'll start with that.
Start big, it'll keep them on.
Yeah, well, it is one of the biggest challenges because we value so highly our work and our purpose, and we need to work and earn a living, etc., which takes up a big chunk of our time. And equally, we value relationships and connection and family for most people. And they often compete in energy and time. And this is where I see the biggest challenge because we're kind of just hoping for balance and saying, what's the work-life balance, which is so fluff and actually means it doesn't make sense to people because my quote-unquote balance is going to be different to your quote-unquote balance. So this is where we need to get really clear and intentional, and I use this word a lot, intentional, of what we want to experience. Not get to our deathbed. I always talk about this, when we're 80, hopefully we are 100 on our deathbed, and being like, oh, I really wish X, Y, Z. I really wish I focused more on this or that. So to get really clear and intentional on what it is you want to experience in your life, in your work, in your relationships, and what is that going to require, really break it down, just like you would in a strategic meeting. You break it down and you get clear on what are those action steps? What does that look like? And what do I need to commit to and show up in to create that relationship? And what do I need to commit to? And what are the things I need to action to have that business success and life that I really want to pursue?
I imagine that's quite a lot to unpack for people.
Right, I know it is. But when we break it down, it's like anything when we get overwhelmed, I want to have this great career and I want to have this amazing relationship. That's very high level. But when we break everything down and we get into those nitty gritties of it all, then we can see it a bit more clearly as opposed to just, I want to build a house. Oh, how do I do that, right? We need to get the land. We need to get the architect. We need to get the builder. We need to get the permits, right? There's so many steps.
And it's process oriented. It's been done a million times and it's been done by other people that are all building the same result. So I imagine that's a challenge to build a unique result because you said it's like your version of balance is different.
Exactly. And we're not taught relationship, which is so fascinating. We're told, okay, when you grow up, you want to have a family, you want to get married, you want to make money, you want to have kids. So we're not taught budgeting and financial management. We're not taught relationships. We're not taught parenting. You kind of learn on the job. But we do so in relationship as well. And we often just copy and paste from our parents or our surroundings, wherever that may be. So we need to get clear on what it is, get curious. What do I actually like when we're working out our values? What do I value? What matters to me? what do I want a relationship for? Do I want to be a parent and just co-parents? Do I want intimacy and connection? Do I want just a companion? Like, what does my relationship mean? What do I want from that? And then you know what you're creating, what that's going to require. Do I want to build a small business, a big business, a company? Do I want a team? Do I want to be a solo? Right? Then you know what you're working towards. But if we don't ask these questions, then we can't get down to that unique blueprint for ourselves.
That's fascinating that you can apply an approach that is very much like a logical planning framework, but there's something that's like infinitely variable.
Yes.
What is common amongst the people you talk to though? What are the common things that come up? Because I imagine there'd be like core elements that almost everyone wants in a relationship, and then there's all these nuances that are personalized. What do you think everyone wants in a relationship?
Most people want, well, I work predominantly with women. So most women want connection. They want intimacy. They want love. Like, a lot of women want that connection, not just the husband that's going to provide and father their children, for example. And I'm talking heterosexual relationships here, obviously. So that is a big one. And what does connection mean? What does connection look like? What does intimacy look like? So we've got to unpack that, because connection to me might mean, okay, we spend quality time together, we talk intimately about our lives, and I know exactly what that person is doing. Connection to someone else might mean we have a great sex life and we have sex all the time, but like I don't really care what they're doing in the rest of their life. So what does that actually mean? But yeah, a lot of women are really wanting that connection and intimacy and support. And especially now, there's more of a desire for emotional connection, not just sexual connection or physical presence and safety, but like I want to be able to share and express myself to you and have you receive that and support me. And a lot of that depth is desired.
Okay, so that's what seems to be the thing that, like, most people want a relationship, and you have said that most of your clientele are females. What do you see as some of the kind of more out there things that people are wanting from a relationship?
Out there. Well, I mean, it can be anything. This is the thing. Like, we get to, whatever it is that we uniquely desire, whatever it is that you desire is right for you, is what you get to own. And when we look outside and be like, oh, well, someone else wants this and someone else likes that, that's when we get confused, and that's when we don't stick on the path that we want.
The comparison syndrome, sort of where you get that, they're doing it this way, and like we're obviously not doing that, so I feel a lack as a result of that FOMO.
Exactly.
You get a bit of that?
Yeah, exactly. Like, oh, well, they're doing this, and like, you see that on Instagram, like, I can't be on Instagram because I just feel like everyone's got this amazing life and not me. And it's like, well, stop focusing on other people and start focusing on your own life, on yourself. And so, I mean, I could list random things, like people want 7 partners, people want to like live apart. Like, there's so many different dynamics of relationship. Like, when they're older, they're like, I'm not sure I'm ready to live with somebody. Maybe I want to have an intimate relationship, but not a live-in relationship. So there's so many different ways that we can relationship.
Yeah, we
and
can
it's
craft
like,
it.
what works for you. And then things can shift as well in our relationship. So you might be a live-in relationship for 10 years and you're like, this isn't actually working. So I want to do something different, and we're going to have 2 homes, and then I'm going to go and sleep over at their house. And it's like, we're dating again. Like whatever it is that creates happiness and connection and unity in your relationship is perfect for you.
That sounds like a very appropriate answer. Yeah, and I don't mean scripted. I mean, sounds appropriate. Like, because there is a lot of, I suppose, shooting with relationships, people shooting all over each other. Where they're like, oh, well, the ideal relationship should have this and the ideal relationship should have that. Where do you think that came from, that judgment of what a great relationship looks like? You sort of gave a hint to it. Like, they don't tell you how to do a good one at school, but there's still this sort of passed down reason for what a relationship's supposed to be. Where did that come from?
Well, I think if you strip it all back, then it's probably religion. Christianity, it's like husband and wife. So it's only a man and a woman. There is no man and man. There is no woman and woman. There is a man and a woman. And until death do us part. So longevity is celebrated in relationship, right? The closure ending of a relationship isn't celebrated, even if it's like, we've had an amazing 20 years and thank you, and now I'm going to release you into the world and I'm going to move into a new chapter. That's not celebrated. That's seen as failure, as opposed to success of 20 beautiful years. But if you see people who are together for 50 years unhappily, that's success. Like, I just see that as mind-boggling to me.
Yeah.
So I think there's lots of societal pressures and expectations that have a lot stemmed down from religion, but also then societal norms, right? You see conversations around open relationships and having multiple partners as like, oh, taboo, because it's not the quote unquote norm. It's not, I mean, you don't read that in the Bible or whatever religious text that you, well, to my understanding, maybe it is, and maybe I'm wrong. And that's okay. But you know what I mean? Like, that's not so common, and we want normal. Like, everyone wants normal. Like, I'm doing this normally. Like, how many times should I have sex? It's like, well, there isn't a prescribed time that's going to work that everybody's, you need to, like, it's unique to you.
So that comment there is interesting, because I also was curious about the religion part, and I believe it probably has informed the vast majority of the kind of conventional structure of a relationship that people seem to keep failing within. Like, and let's just say that, like, that is a major religion, obviously, but it's not the only major religion. True. And most of them have similar origins and their story of the rising flood. And, you know, if you watch some of the documentaries out now, like Ancient Apocalypse, where they go and talk about all these religions, and they all have these really similar common themes. But that was thousands of years ago. Like, there were so many things that weren't present then, so much awareness that wasn't there then. They probably still thought the earth was flat then. Yet, like, there's principles in those books that a lot of people live by, and it probably helps people live well. But I think it does create this real gap of misunderstanding around when you talk about how many times should we have sex, or how many of this thing should we do. Are they having that as a comparison to see what box they need to fit into, or do you think it's a benchmark of them, you know, trying to figure out the health of their relationship?
Yes, but that still comes back to what you said of comparison. I'm comparing it to the people who have been surveyed on this, or I'm comparing to my neighbour, right? And I just never see comparison work to anyone's advantage. You're either like inferior or superior. And I'm like, well, either way isn't really where you want to be. Yeah. So I don't understand, like, I just really don't understand that concept. I don't know how you win. I don't know how anyone wins in that. And I don't think they do, but that's like the norm of how to compare to be able to measure.
Yeah, because I've asked a question there, but it really does. Both of them lead to, like you said, like, you're either superior, which I'm not trying to feel that, or I'm inferior, which leaves a big gap, and then, you know, stuck back in that sort of shame spiral again, or guilt or comparison spiral, whatever it might be. I feel that with most things that are a personal set of goals, one way to measure how you're doing is to look backwards at progress we've made, you know, and progress we've made towards something that we had already decided is important, you know, like a feeling of intimacy, or, you know, that we do spend proper time around each other without it also being a work thing, or something like that. Yeah. Because then you could actually make progress, and it's your chart, rather than trying to sort of mix up, like with a language translator, what someone else's chart compares to your own.
Exactly. And that's the only place that you compare is to your former self, I believe.
I like that.
Right? Yeah. Because then you can be like, so we are spending more time together. I am feeling more connected to you, because last month I saw you twice. This month I've seen you every week, and we've had conversations. Last month we didn't really sit down and have a date night or whatever you want it to be. This month we have. How do you feel? I feel like really alive, and I feel like I know what's going on in your world, and I feel excited to see you now. Yeah. Right. So compared to last month, that is growth, that is better, that is success, whatever you want to deem it. So that's the only time I think it's healthy and beneficial to compare. And I think that's where you're going to get the measurements and the results that you actually want.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense to me as well. I see that you've made a bit of a transition yourself, and I wonder if this is related to your own journey or just like a progression you've made. You used to really specialize in like helping people deal with the dating scene, which is just all kinds of things going on there. And now you've sort of arced into doing a lot more work with existing relationships as well. Let's just start on dating. What's changed in the dating landscape in, say, the last 5 years? Since COVID was a thing, I know that was like a major catalyst for changing how dating happens. In your view, what's changed in the last 5 years?
Yeah, well, I mean, 5 years ago there was online dating, and now it seems to be kind of the only space that's really leaned on. There's a desire. I'm seeing a more of a desire for more in-person meetups and events and those types of things. But there is still a very strong reliance only on online dating, which means that a lot of people, and I'm generalizing here, but a lot of people are staying at home alone on their couch by themselves on an app, which isn't creating connections. It's creating, okay, do I like the look of you? Do I, enjoy what you've said in the 7 sentences that you've got?
Yeah.
Which a lot of people don't use very well, I must say, in those 7 sentences and those prompts. So I'm seeing that, and there's a lot of transactional relationships that I'm seeing that are happening because of apps, when really we need to be open. So we can still be on online dating, but to be open to meeting people in person, being open to be set up, being off their phone and looking outside when we're in the post office line. Don't look down, look up. The amount of people I've seen who are from my community in the post office line is crazy, because the only people that really go to that post office are in my area, right?
Yeah.
And it's a lot more convenient to date someone that's close to you, so you don't have to drive an hour. But do you know what I mean? So to be open, so I'm seeing there's more kind of insular kind of approach digital dating, which...
Why do you think they've stuck with that?
Well, it's fascinating because a lot of people will say it's not working and I don't like it. Well, I hate it. That's a common word. I hate online dating, but then they're still on it. But this is, again, it's kind of become this, well, this is the way it is. And I'm always about who says, and if someone says you go left, I'm like, whoa, I'm going to try and go right. That's just my rebellious nature. So I'm like, okay, how can we look outside of that? What can I do? Where can I put myself in the world, in the outside world, in the external world, to be having more interactions with other people rather than just relying on this one path? So I think we need to be a bit more creative in it rather than just rely on something that's said and done, because if you look at all areas of life where they say you just do it this way, it doesn't often bring fulfillment and the outcome that you want.
Yeah.
Just get a job at 18 and stick with that for the rest of your life. No one's really happy in that. So
yeah, I have a view on things like this when people say that's just how it is, right? And it does grind my gears a little bit, and I think part of it is my engineering background, that I look at things first principles, like theory of constraints or laws of physics or whatever. And it can sound a little bit Elon. It doesn't mean it has to be delivered that way. So if someone says it's just how it is, and it's like, well, what is just how what is? And is it really a constraint? So if we've got a goal to be in a relationship that means all the things that they said that was their goal, and the thing that's standing in the way of me is online dating, is that actually the only way to achieve that relationship? Now, if it's an effective way or an efficient way, or effective and efficient, but I'm just not good at it, then the muscle to build is getting good at online dating, or at least communicating in a way that feels authentic for me, so that more of myself can show up, and then that I can meet more people that are like the people I want to meet. Whereas if it's something else more about oneself, that they need to open themselves up more, whether it's online or in person, or whether it's they need to deal with some issues about themselves that they don't think they're good enough for a partner, and that's just going to keep pushing them away and energetically, then there's different muscles that need to be built. So I suppose what I'm asking here is, how do you deal with that mindset? Particularly, you've mentioned before when we've chatted that, you deal with a lot of women, and it's not as much of a businessy structured way of doing it. It's a lot more feminine. There's a lot more holding space and creating openness for that. But if someone is sort of fixed on the view, well, that's how it is, how do you move them off that view, that there's not that barrier in front of them, whilst it might seem big, it can be climbed or overcome in many different ways? Yeah,
well, I think you've really identified it there with that's the perceived barrier, or that's the high level barrier, but really it is I feel a lack of confidence to go out and talk to somebody in the street. I don't think I'm worthy of X, Y, Z, right? And we drill down, that's what we've got to do, drill down to the actual root of what it is, because you can meet anyone anywhere, whether it's through a digital app or in person, right? But we need to be able to show up as our authentic selves. And if we think the only people who are single are online, I'm like, well, that can't be true, right? Because those people who are online go out and buy food, right? So they're outside.
They go to the post office.
Go to the post office.
I tell you what, I'm not single and I'm not looking at the moment. But I tell you what, next time it comes up in conversation, I've spoken to a subject matter expert on this. It's where it's at, the post office line.
Yeah.
They're all looking down at their phones. If we can catch a bit of eye contact, oh my God, you're going to have a lineup.
Yes, absolutely. I've met people and like past like an eye and they were like, oh, where are you living? And, you can see. So yeah, it's interesting. There's opportunity everywhere. Like they also say like 10 a.m. on a Saturday or a Sunday at like the health food store, because then they're not out drinking, they're out meal prepping, buying food for the week. Like if that's what you're into.
Just went through my mind then. We're really connected like this. We finished each other's sentences earlier when we were chatting in prep. I reckon the Whole Foods line, so what I'm hearing there is a bit of an unlock that you sort of want to fish where the type of fish are that you want to catch, right? And, and that goes the opposite direction too. If you don't want to slip over, don't hang out in slippery places.
That's exactly right. That's exactly right. But if you like to be out drinking until 3 a.m., then don't set your alarm to be at the health food shop at 10 a.m. because that's not your thing. Like go and meet somebody.
And you'll repel someone who's healthy with your grog breath, right? It's just like... But they've still got a little bit of you in them, so maybe you'll pick them off on the off camber.
You never know. But like when we are doing things that fulfill us and that are our values and our interests, then we're going to mix with those people. Like don't go and like I don't enjoy like fishing, right? So I'm not going to go and start buying a rod and fishing. And I say that, that's a funny example because my partner is a fisherman and like we don't fish together.
Have you bought him a rod though?
No, he's done. He's got it. I just receive the fish and cook it and we have a great time. But like I don't go fishing. But like do the things that we love and that's because then we're alive, like if I was fishing, I'd probably look like a very somber human because it doesn't sound exciting to me. But if I'm out going for a walk or doing pottery or these types of things when I'm alive and I walk outside, I'm like, oh my God, that feels so good. Like I'm more attractive, right? I'm more alive. So go to the places that, now we're getting onto like how to find your person. But go to the places that excite you, not be like, okay, where can I go and find said target?
Yes.
Like, off you go.
Tactical operation number 322.
Exactly.
Experiment.
Yeah, exactly. 322. You're like, oh my God. But coming full circle back to where I started this and to answer your question is around really getting clear on what it is that you're feeling is blocking, like you're blocking yourself. Like, I don't feel ready for this. I don't feel worthy. I don't know how to communicate. Like these skills that are relational, work on those. If you're saying, okay, I don't know how to talk to someone online or I don't know how to meet someone in person and like say, hey, right? You don't have to say anything like, hey, I really find you attractive. I want to go out with you. I can only do Saturdays. Like you don't have to say everything in one go.
Yeah.
But like.
Yeah, it's like 9 filters.
Right.
If you're into gambling, which I'm definitely not for the record, but it'd be like doing one of those multi-bets I hear people talk about where you're not just betting on the team that's going to win. You're then betting the first goal scorer and you're betting the time of the game it's going to be on. If you put all your preferences out there at start, it's either a massive red flag or it just filters people out even without emotion.
Yeah, of course, because it's like, oh God, I now have to fit in this criteria.
Yeah.
And we get to know people, like just getting to know somebody and letting that uncover as opposed to having like a 10 questionnaire. Are you ready for marriage? Do you want to get married? Do you want children? How many children do you have? Like, what's your timeline? It's like, whoa, like you don't even know my middle name. Like, let's just calm down.
Yeah. Wow. So yeah, I imagine those people would also have a little bit of trouble having conversations in person, like you said. So there's probably some prescription there.
Yeah. But there can be a lot of pressure, right? Because our society says relationship equals success and single is like, ooh, like what's wrong with you? As opposed to I'm really happy single and I'm learning about myself. I'm focusing on my career. I'm really focused on the sport I'm playing, like whatever your reasoning is. Like you don't even have to have a reason, but to know yourself, like I feel good. But like I was single in my 30s and even into my 40s, not my whole 30s, but part of my 30s. And people are like, oh, are you okay? Like it's just, and I was always going out with coupled friends. I was the token single friend.
Yeah.
And I was like, yeah, cool. Like, all good. Like I could have a boyfriend yesterday, a partner yesterday, but like I don't want to date that person. I want to find a really good partner.
Yes.
Right? I'm not desperate. I'm just single.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
There's a difference. So being okay and getting to really love and like I always talk about, like our most important relationship is with ourselves. So getting to really love our own lives so then we can offer and share it with another, as opposed to like, got to find a date. This is really big and scary and daunting and da-da-da.
Yeah, the dating apps. I'm sort of pretty glad I kind of missed that revolution to a large extent in my own world. One thing that did pop up there that I heard you talk about was just, people coming across sort of authentic or at least saying what they mean to say on there. And it just popped into my mind that there is a solve for that, but it might not actually solve for them being more authentic. And that would be, like I imagine it wouldn't be too hard to hook up an AI and I'm not talking about having the AI talk on your behalf. I'm talking about you talking to your AI and saying, this is what I want to say, and then having it come across that way. But I can imagine there'd be a real spectrum there of people going too far, like getting the world's best prompts of all the paid, you can get coaches now on how to game the dating apps. Men and women get these coaches. I've seen the ads. And why were they being shown to me?
Your algorithm's off.
Yeah, don't worry. I haven't seen as many. But when it comes to that, do you think that's going to play a part? Like AI can be really helpful especially if you've got all of who you are and what you're about already loaded in. And it's just like, I just challenge on these platforms getting across what I want to say, so help me say it, versus what would I need to say here to get the guy or get the girl?
Yeah, and I think we can use it to support and as a tool, but when we're using it as our voice solely, I think that can tread into dangerous waters. And, I can remember a girlfriend and she was showing me like a conversation that she was having online. And she's like, I think that's AI. And it just entered my mind. I didn't even fathom, like just didn't enter my mind that you would construct a message using AI, like to respond. I can just communicate. So it's just it didn't even enter my mind. I was like, oh my gosh. Just go, honestly think it's AI. And then I put it into AI and I said, is this AI? And I was like, oh my God, now we're all paranoid. Is this AI or is this real? So to answer your question, yes, we can use it to get a clear kind of understanding, like, okay, I really like this, how would you describe me? And then, oh wow, I would never have thought of that. And then you use your own language and spin on that, and you kind of have that check in with yourself. Does that sound like me? That actually is accurate. Wow, I never would have described myself as empathetic, but I really am. I'm compassionate and empathetic. Wow, that's awesome. And I'll use that. But rather than just go, oh, that sounds really good, that's what the women want, that's what the men want, right, when it's not real. But we can use it as a tool to help us, because not everyone has this huge vocabulary to articulate things, but it's in those prompts, if we're talking about dating online, that you get to really use all the characters of those prompts and fill it in and say like what it is that's important to you, and paint a picture of who you are, not what you look like. Like, yeah, the photos are going to do that great, but like it's who you are. And the people who are looking for the substance of somebody are going to read that. And the people who are looking just for what you look like aren't. And then it's easier to filter that out. If you've got all of this like intricate detail about your values and what you love and what's important to you and all of that, people who are just wanting a good time are going to be like, oh, that's just going to be too hard to get through. There's too many barriers there. Like she's too in this for the real deal. So they move on. But yeah, I think we can use any type of tool for support. You can ask people like, how would you describe me? Like, that's not AI, but it's still getting someone else's feedback. It's just when we use it.
It's an input. It's an input, not the sole, main through line to the output. But I do think there's a little off-piste sort of little hack that we can give here, because you have just answered that in a way that sounds very genuine. I know integrity is your highest of values. And I think in this process, like, having integrity isn't necessarily going to be received as integrity on the other end, because trust is built over many inputs, and there are more inputs that the person on the other end needs to be looking for themselves. But I think if we're just going to do a little quick hack on this, I think if I was setting up ChatGPT for this purpose and I was coming at it from a place of being genuine and authentic, first thing I'd do is I'd get my iPhone and just put it on voice note, and I would go for a walk in an inspiring place that I actually feel good in, myself in. And I would walk through a park or whatever with lots of green, and I'd be just talking about me. Like, what's important to me, what's important in my life, what my journey's been like today, the relationships that I feel I've stuffed up and the part I played in that, the things I didn't identify, what I've learned since then, how my preferences have changed, what amazing looks like to me, things that I'm concerned about could be a blocker for me, and I don't know how to say it yet, and it's just a raw dump, like all of this stuff. And that would then, I'd get that same voice note and I'd say into ChatGPT that, look, what I want to do is use this as a reference library to build custom instructions for me being able to communicate better on a digital platform, because I am comfortable with who I am as a person. And that would be a certain gradient there as well, but this would be if I was doing it. I'm comfortable with am I as a person. However, I'm concerned that when I come through these, models, I don't come out as me. So that would be one part. Another part would be screenshotting like 50 pages of text messages that we've sent to various relationships. Now, they don't have to be intimate relationships. It could be a business, could be a close friend, could be a parents. So we can see how we talk to each other usually. And then what I'll be asking the ChatGPT to do is that when you give me answers to put into this app, I want you to answer them the same way I write. Because there's going to be typos, there's going to be grammatical errors, and that could take away a bit of the concern that the other, potential relationship would see on the other end, that this is too manicured, this must be ChatGPT or something like it, because it's all in perfect paragraphs, they're actually even square. How is this even possible? They're using punctuation, but then you get to me and they're like, oh, good day, I done a good job today, didn't I, So it's got to be genuine in that regard.
Yes.
And then I think you could set a model that when someone says something, you could say back to it, this is what I'd like to say. And basically then it allows you to help say how you would say it if you were with them in person in your more comfortable space or what your intentions are, but it's going to come out in words like your own that are informed by what you're looking for. So there's some guardrails around it, but it's still you. That's my little off piece. How do you reckon that would go?
I mean, that's genius. That's a very genius model of like how to be have your personality, have who you are, like kind of put back to you in simple, like condensed form. Yeah. But if we're going to use it to, okay, Sandra said XYZ, I want to say, yes, I really love to in a really sexy way, for example, like then we're not being, it's even though you've like, what do you call it? Like programmed it to speak as you, it's still not authentic so that would be the only part. But I love how you put all that in.
It was off the cuff, and that's why I said it's off piece. No, I literally just made it up on the spot.
It's honestly genius because how you see yourself and then how you interact, and then you could even input data of like what other voice notes of friends, like I see them like this, and then get a picture for yourself, right? Because we don't see ourselves as who we really are, truly. And we're like, I'm so kind and always patient. And then friends are like, you were so impatient. And you're like, oh, right? So it's both. We need to have an understanding of how we experience ourselves, but also how others experience us. And then, so I remember once I had a really down moment and I asked 5 of my friends, like, how do you see me? Because I had this distorted view of myself. And I was like, I need some radical kind of intervention here because I'm telling myself stories and I can't get out of this silly spiral. And I asked them, like, tell me how you see me. Like, I need a pep up and I need to reprogram this right now. And then I was like, yeah, that's right. Like they weren't blowing smoke up my butt, but they were reflecting what the truth is because in the moment I wasn't seeing my truth.
Yeah.
But that data is valuable, right? So then I'm like, so if someone messes me around and I'm like, oh, I don't really feel worthy, I can remember, actually, I'm all these things and I am worthy. If you're going to be late, you tell me. I'll happily wait, but tell me, that's important to me.
Yeah.
So those types of things, like we can use it, but we also love the realness and rawness. Like, oh, like I really want to say yes, but like I'm a little bit nervous. Yes, let's just do it, right? That's authentic and fumbly and not this confident woman, but like that's my truth in that moment.
Yeah.
And you would be like, oh, that's so sweet. Oh yeah, let's do it, right? As opposed to it being perfectly curated.
And that part there, that genuine imperfection is like, I really see that as beautiful.
Yes.
And like when I have ever been in dating, even you just call it people you get fond of. Like, I think for me, this is just a personal viewpoint. I don't think attraction gets turned off just because we choose to be in a relationship, especially when we have our own versions of what that relationship is. We've already made agreements in that relationship, if it's a proper one, about what that is. But I don't think it gets turned off at all because that would be taking away what we are to be human. What's your views on that?
Yeah, no, I agree. I mean, if you found people attractive before you committed to a relationship, you're still going to find people attractive. Yeah. I mean, you don't just all of a sudden turn off your primal instincts.
Well, right? It puts a lot of pressure on the other person if so. It's just like, well, are you only attracted to the type of person I was or how I showed up or my physicality at that very moment in time? Because our relationship's definitely going to evolve over time. I sort of, even though this is a risk here of sounding like I'm commoditizing something that's very human. So like, to talk about a relationship and talk about a business and to talk about the business of the relationship, I do feel that business has helped relationships have a better chance as people like yourself have come about. You've been doing this a long time now as a mentor in this space, not just dating, but now a relationship, and you're foraying into doing some sort of more couples mentoring, which is really interesting. That hasn't always been the case, though. It hasn't always been available. And I feel a lot of the programs that have seemed to be beneficial, they do have pillars similar to what you would use in a sporting organisation or a business. Like, what are our values? What's our purpose? Like, what are we trying to achieve? Like, what does good look like? What does done look like? What's a no-go zone? Like, what's a breach of the rules? And sometimes that can also have people go, it's too clinical, I don't want that. But then they sort of run away from having the conversations they need to have. And that's where this massive gap occurs of where there's a mismatch in expectations, which is frustration by definition, turns into resentment if we think we're at loss as a result of it, turns into anger very quickly, depending on how short the fuse is and how it was all communicated. And before you know it, like everyone's at a much bigger loss as a result of not having that convo. Is that something that you deal with? And if so, how do you?
Yes, I know. And it's not a simple like one solution fix, but it is at the same time, because yes, you need to have that structure in a relationship, right? I need to know that this is a committed relationship. What does that mean? Like, we commit to marriage, we commit to today, we commit to tonight, we commit to monogamy, we commit to moving towards a family. Like, what is that? What is our intention here? What do we want this relationship to bring? Like, do we want it to bring family? Do we want it to bring travel and adventure and exploration, but no family, no marriage? Like, what is it that we're wanting? Like I said, like, we need to know what that structure is. And it's not de-romanticizing it. It allows that then you can flow in between. A river that doesn't have banks is not a river, a flowing river. It's a flood. And when we are flooding all over the place, that's when it's like, I don't really know like what they're doing. And when I ask somebody, so what does your partner think about this? Like, I don't really know. Or what's your partner's, I don't really know. Like, obviously we don't know everything about our partner, but for someone to not know, that means they don't understand where their partner sits on something. They haven't had a conversation about something, right? And to me, that's treading dangerous waters, because we need to be in communication and conversation and connection of like, what are we creating and what's that going to look like? If you start baking, like, got the flour and this, like, what are we baking? I don't know. We'll see what it turns out like. It's cookies, it's a cake, it's burnt. Like, what are we doing? Yeah. We have to have some kind of structure that we're working towards. I'm trying to picture that we're working towards. If structure doesn't, like, it sounds a bit like the
picture's nice.
Picture's nice, but we need to get clear on that, and it can be exciting. When I sat down with my partner when we first decided, okay, we're going to do this and we want this long term, we worked out like what our values are and what we want our relationship to look like and how we're going to keep the intimacy going and how we're going to prioritize ourselves in busy life of parenting and work and friends and all of the things that we both individually pursue, rather than just be like, we're in love, it's just going to work out like this forever. And then you have 5 kids and you're like, oops, right? Because and iterations happen in our long-term relationships. You have one child, very different to when you have two children. When you have one business, when you're both working, when you're got a sick parent, like whatever it may be, there's always shifts and changes, and we need to be in conversation to be on the same page of what we're wanting.
That's a thing you raised just there about the children part, and I understand that you've gotten into a relationship recently by choice, not because you're single as a problem and I'm forcing myself into this. It sounds like it's happened very well. So you mentioned that you've now got a stepson as well. Tell us about that. What's that like?
It's the best, honestly. It's like I got 2 for 1. It's like the coolest thing.
Tick.
Yeah, like I love it. But it changes the dynamic because we have him week on, week off. So we have a relationship where it's just two people for 1 week, and then we have a relationship where there's two people and a child another week.
Yeah.
Which is wonderful, and it requires different things. We have less time. Like, he is the most social, active human I know. My stepson, we're taking him here and there, and I'm like, how do you do so many things?
Yeah.
Right? So our days look different when we have him. So being able to navigate. So what do we want our relationship to look like then, and how do we prioritize our own time then, and what do we do? And we actively spoke about how we want to have our check-ins. We have like weekly check-ins before we get him, after he goes back to his mum's house, date nights that we have, intimate time that we have. So we've spoken openly about this, rather than just being like, oh, well, when we have him, it's just a whirlwind and we don't have any time together. And then all of a sudden when we don't have him, then we're just meant to be like on, and everything's like, well, that doesn't really work, because we're parenting. Like, parenting is like you need to be a team, right? So we have to be on the same page with what's happening and how we're parenting and how we're communicating and what we're teaching him. And like, there's so much. It's like, it's a whole nother element of relationship. It's a lot. I love it, but it is a lot.
So this is really, we've had a lot of flow here. So I'm just like, man, I've got so much I want to talk to you about. I'm like, is it even going to fit? So I'm going to do my best on rapid fire. Here's a question. Why should men, or why are men worried about their partner, if they're in a hetero relationship, about the woman in their relationship getting mentoring or relationship sort of counselling? Why are they worried about that?
I feel that it's unknown, and a lot of people, if they haven't experienced mentoring, counselling, psychologists themselves, then they don't understand that it isn't to get together with somebody and bitch and moan about somebody else or to throw somebody under the bus, but it's really for themselves. If your partner is going to go to counselling, then they want to learn about themselves to be able to bring the best version of themselves. So getting an understanding for yourself, going along into a couples counselling or asking questions, getting your own counsellor, whatever that looks like for you. But it's really about awareness and self-awareness. And the more that we can foster that for ourselves, the better our relationships can be. So
I think that sounds really solid. And for someone that's got self-awareness of themselves, they're probably not as worried about that. But, you know, everyone's coming onto the wheel at a different stage.
Yeah.
So what facilities are you making available now for the male part of a couple to come into your world?
Yeah, well, as I said, I have predominantly worked with women, and I love that. And now I want to expand that to work with men in relationships, supporting them in their relationship to understand their partner better, to be able to develop the skills to create the intimacy and connection that their partner may be saying they really want, and they don't know how. They don't have the tools. Like, what does she mean by emotional connection? And what does she mean by talking to him about what? You know, all of these types of things are like, what is this high level talk? Like, how do I show up? Like, I want to love her. I want to support her, but what the hell do I do to make her happy? And also that's fulfilling for them as well. But a lot of men really want to love well, and they don't necessarily have the tools to. They don't have the skills because, like I said, we weren't taught relationship. And maybe you never saw your dad apologize. Maybe you never saw your dad sit down and work something out and repair something with your mum. They just fought, and then that was it. And then it was all just smoothed over, and you're like, I didn't see what happened there. So if I'm having a conflict or a challenge with my partner, and it's we have conversation conflict, and we do that in front of our stepson, and we show the repair in front of my stepson, his son, because that's really important to see that you can have a conflict and you can talk about it and you can have opposing opinions, and then you can repair and come back together very quickly. But if you haven't seen that, and a lot of people haven't, especially males, then we need to get support to be able to do that, because that's a part of relationship.
I think there's another business reference there. So Patrick Lencioni, who's famous for the book 5 Dysfunctions of a Team or Death by Meeting, he comes at things and he's got a big family component as well. He actually wrote a book on the same topic for families. But the absence of trust is one of the things that kills a team. And with the marriage being a team, it's a similar thing. Now, the absence of trust can be measured if there is an absence of ideological conflict. So a measure of trust will be how much you're willing to debate ideas with each other, not the person. I'm not attacking you. Sometimes it might come across like that if we don't choose our words right or if we let ourselves get too triggered. But we're debating about the idea, and what it's actually doing is saying, here's my perspective. Does it look different from that side? Oh, geez, it's only circular from that side. That was a big straight line from that side. So we can kind of get that additional perspective. And then the idea is with our collective intelligence or our collective perspective, now we can form a view where we can have our needs met and not at your expense, or otherwise known as a win-win.
Yes.
So I think that's pretty rad. Another rapid fire question for you here, because I'm trying to get through some really big topics that I've heard spoken about. So actually with that, are you going to see men just on their own about how they can bring what they need to bring to the relationship? Or is this going to be like a dual counseling session, you're thinking?
Both.
Okay. Mm-hmm. Okay. Well, this is good. People are going to know this because they're going to want to know more about you.
Yeah.
Now, how do we deal with like the queer community when it comes to gender representation or non-binary at the moment? And, you know, we very much are speaking in this context as women. Mm-hmm. What do you do with that?
Yeah, I mean, it's a tricky, sticky subject. And I kind of feel when you lean towards one way, you can offend people that way. And if you lean towards the other way, you can upset people in another camp, another group, another minority. And I never want to do that. I speak normally around masculine and feminine energetics around relationship, and how it doesn't necessarily mean feminine is woman, female, and masculine is male, man. Mm-hmm. So I try not to get into the nitty-gritty of it because I don't have that experience where like I identify as a female, as a woman, and that's my experience. So I can't speak for other people's experiences. But when I talk about, okay, I normally specify in a heterosexual relationship, for example. So then if someone's not in that relationship, they're not going to listen because that's not going to, it's like when someone says, when you're in your 10-figure business, I'm like, oh, that's not for me because that's not my experience. That's not where I'm at. So then you can tune out, right? So I speak in that language. So, but the relationship dynamics really aren't gendered. They are, we have someone that's showing up maybe in more of this energetic, and then another person showing up maybe in more of this energetic. But ultimately, relationship skills, communication, all of these types of things are going to apply across the board. So it's just not an area where I've had to like really unpack it and put myself in a specific spot with it, because it's not something that I'm really well versed in, if I'm really honest.
Yeah, well, I think, again, that holds well with your integrity. But the profile that you've suggested there is your profile. Like, you know, you're speaking from your experience. I identify as a woman. I was born as a woman, and I'm speaking about feminine energy. I imagine if someone wants to be called a girl or a male or they, then you would happily entertain that.
Just like I ask you what your name is and I call you by your name, and if you want a certain pronoun and those types of things, then I don't mind what someone wants to be called and referred to. Like, that doesn't matter to me, right? If someone's a doctor and I call them doctor, that's great. If someone's something else, that's also great. So I don't put weight on that. I understand that some of those communities, it feels very weighty and heavy because they feel dismissed and unseen. Yeah. But because that's not experienced by me, I don't personally experience that. So I'm so happy to call you she if that's what you wanted. And Mark didn't ask me to say that, but to call him she. But if he wanted to, I would. You know, like I don't mind.
Yeah, no judgment from my end on this either. Like I'm asking questions that I know are burning out there. And I think it's quite fair and reasonable how you've gone about answering that, because like you're just speaking from the kind of value you can provide. And like to your comment earlier about like, you know, if someone says, I'm giving advice for 10-figure business owners, and you tune out, that's actually what that person wants.
Right.
Right. And I've learned a lot of this since, you know, I've built a lot of brands and personal brands, but my own is really only just coming out now because I want to speak to other people and find other people that have similar beliefs, have similar objectives, and grow a community of like-minded individuals so we can utilize each other's collective intelligence to do better things in the world. Mm-hmm. So I have also had to kind of like have some uncomfortable processes when, you know, I get coached on, I need to say I'm a multi-time 8-figure founder. And I feel like, oh, you wanker. You know, like that could be just a small poppy syndrome that I also complain about because I don't like small poppy syndrome.
Yep.
I like helping other people rise, but it seems like when I'm rising, I feel bad talking about it. Mm. But what I've learned when I'm talking about 8-figure founders, it's because I want to meet other 8-figure founders because I've been working on this whole process and I want to share and make sure, is this actually important to you? Like, is this a problem you're trying to solve as well? Because I might have some as well that we can lean on each other for.
Absolutely.
So it's another filter, and it's a deliberate one. It's not like in a dating app that you've got every little thing that you need to say, but it is saying, hey, I want to at least speak to these people.
Yeah.
So I think that's a really great sort of wrap up of that. All right, well, I'm going to have one more question for you because we've got to wrap up. What does flow look like, but in a relationship? Okay, so what does flow in a relationship look like to you?
I feel like when I'm in tune with myself and I'm in tune with my partner and we are feeling and living the agreements and picture that we're wanting, that we intended, that we set to create an experience together. And like I said before, when we don't have a structure, we don't have flow, we have a flood. Like, because a riverbank is like the structure of the river. And as soon as that riverbank falls, it turns into a flood. And then you don't know left from right, up from down. So we need to have some kind of holding, some kind of agreement, some kind of boundaries, right? And we have boundaries in relationship, most of us.
Like the riverbed.
Like the riverbed, exactly. Yeah. So when I'm feeling in flow with my partner, I'm feeling connected to them, I'm feeling loved, I'm feeling seen, I'm feeling supported, and I'm feeling like I'm offering that to them and that I'm making their life easier and they're making my life easier, and we're just a little happy family.
I really like that. Bringing that picture together. I did like it how you said before, structure sounds a little bit clinical. We're going for picture, but it's what's kind of it is. It's sort of like you've seen the picture before because you must have visualized it. You know, nothing really comes into existence in this world without being imagined first, even if it's subconscious.
Yes.
But if we are intentional about visualizing that together, we can add in the elements of that picture. We can both look at it together. We can be reviewing it regularly. But it's sort of like a Polaroid that as you shake it, it becomes more real.
More clear.
So I'm sort of liking what you're saying. We're working on that picture becoming our picture.
Yeah, but little structured things like my partner and I have we use Google Calendar, right? So we have an electronic calendar. And so we have our check-in, our relationship check-in in the calendar. So then we don't just get to 3 weeks and be like, oh my God, we haven't done it. Oh, I want to rip you to shreds, right? Because that's not going to work. So that's a structure. Like we have a date night booked in. That's a structure. Like there's things that we have structured and booked in, which is like kind of like the structure that I'm talking about. I don't want it to make it all clinical. That's really not.
That's right. Look, I think everyone so far knows that you are not clinical. You are opening up space for people to define what is important to them, and then you're helping them create a shape that's going to make it easier to achieve that thing than not. So yeah, I don't think it sounds overly clinical at all.
Great.
Sally, thank you very much for coming on today. This has been incredible. I know there's maximum audience value here. This one's going to get shared around a lot, so I'm going to encourage people to share it around, make a few comments in a positive way and just get it to some people that need to hear this. But most importantly, I think that there's going to be some people who will gain a lot by just listening through it a couple of times and seeing what makes sense to them.
Yeah, absolutely.
Thanks very much, Sally.
Thank you for having me.
Pleasure.